Superintendent, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk with us.
Of course.
The point that we're talking now, we are about 7 hours away from families finding out what's going to happen to their campuses. Talk to me about how you're feeling and the feel around this building.
Yeah, there's a little bit of anxiousness. We certainly recognize the moment. This organization has been working through lots of disruptions over the last many years, and over the last many decades, just lots of indecisions and different strategies that the organization has taken, and compounded with the pressures of the state, kind of put us at a moment where we need to do something to evolve as a school district, to do what's best for our kids. And we've put the time in, we've put the work in, and so we're wanting to share where we are with the plan with our community, get feedback on this process. We're going to be releasing draft information for consideration. But we're anxious. It's an important moment in our history. We acknowledge that, and we also acknowledge that there's going to be, frustration and pain and disruption in our community. And we're going to do whatever we can to ensure that our families and students are supported in any transaction that they may go through.
So let's take a step back, because I feel like the moment that we're in now and the issues that the district are facing, they're compounded. It's layers to it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so when you first think about the fact that you were going to have to consolidate and close some campuses due to the budget shortfall, talk to us about just how significant of a shortfall we're talking.
Yeah, so it's significant. When you think about where we've been over the last 2 years, we have shared with our trustees at various times, budget deficits from $60 to $90 million. We have worked very, very hard to reduce those expenses to get our budget to be in alignment, and we've seen progress. I mean, we really have. We have reorganized central office. We've reduced our costs. We have managed overtime. We have identified vacancy savings. We have done just about everything we possibly can do, and we did it in a way that protected our schools. Up until this point, we were hyper thoughtful about making sure that all of those reductions were taken away from the classroom. And at the same time, we also identified those things that are non-negotiable for us. We absolutely believe in planning time for our teachers. We absolutely believe in librarians, registered nurses. These are things that are above and beyond what we get, reimbursed for or paid for by the state. But that's who we are as a school district. And so over this journey, we identified, where we were and kind of what things we wanted to hold true to. But given the challenges that we've seen and the ever increasing cost of education, compounded by the fact that the state hasn't met the needs of our school districts, we're at a point now where we simply have to figure out how can we become more efficient within our system to drive, to get to a healthy budget.
I feel like for well over a decade now. And when I first came to this market, we were talking about budget deficits within Austin ISD, and a lot of it centering around Robin Hood and how much money the district would have to give. So do you feel like maybe something could have been done sooner when we've known that the district has been losing money consistently year after year?
Well, it's one of these things where the district has benefited from ever increasing property values. Right, and so when you think of the last 10 years, 7 of those years we saw significant growth. Even not the last 2, but the years before that, you saw 8% growth, 11% growth, and our revenue is based on the property values in Austin. And so we weren't as tight as we otherwise should have been. This is many years ago, and we benefited from that increase in growth and value. And so as the property growth began to decline, which is what we've seen over the last 2 years, coupled with an increase in cost of education, we've gotten to a place where there's no more money coming in, right? And our expenses have not been reduced. But we also know that what is most important to us as an organization is making sure that we have highly qualified teachers who love our students in those classrooms every single day. And we've made commitments over the last couple of years to invest in them with compensation, balance of life, making sure that they're developing and getting what they need out of our system, out of our school district. And we've gotten to a point where we believe in those things. We believe in our teachers, but something has to change. So yeah, could decisions have been made 5 years, 10 years ago to put us in a different spot? Yes. but we had the luxury at that time of having a very healthy fund balance, hundreds of millions of dollars. We had the luxury of increasing property value, so it didn't feel as painful, though we weren't as tight as we should have been. Now, all of that has kind of come to a moment where we have to address it or risk the future of our organization, of our school district that we love.
Times were good, but there were still alarm bells going off about affordability and the future of affordability in the city. Do you feel like to some degree, perhaps local leaders, state leaders could have, should have been doing more to address affordability in a way that wasn't going to impact the district?
Affordability, we have a role to play in it, but it's a larger ecosystem that we live within, right? There are so many things that drive affordability, especially in a place like Austin, that are outside, Austin ISD's control. And so I don't think back to different leaders and decisions they could have made or could not have made. I think that we as an organization just weren't quite backed into a spot where we were able to take on difficult decisions, and these are difficult decisions. In years past, we knew that things were tight, but we didn't know how tight they were. We knew things were tough with the state, but we didn't know how tough they were. Now there's a shared understanding of just how this compounding pressure has built up to get us to this moment. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, we have to serve our students. We exist to support our students here in Austin, and every single student doesn't have the same experience. And so we as an organization are willing to invest in areas where those students who have been historically underserved get what they need, where they haven't maybe in decades past. And we're acknowledging that, and we're investing, and we're creating systems around it. But all the meanwhile, resources are being depleted. And the one thing that I don't think is often known is the changes at the federal level also have had a huge impact. Every time that title funding, Title II, III, or IV, or a change in grant funding comes down, from the federal government through the state, it hits us. Not too long ago, I had over 100 staff in a room downstairs, and we were talking about the fact that these freezing of funds are going to impact their employment. And these are people who are here supporting our students in some of our most vulnerable parts of the city, and it's gone overnight. And so we have to acknowledge that the pressures around us are real. They're not going away. And if we're going to protect this school district in the city that we love, we have to make hard decisions.
There are parents who say the school has been in the community for decades. Yeah. This is a part of us. This is a part of our fabric. Yeah. We don't want to see it close. Those campuses are going to close. But if not that, then what? What would have been the alternative? Is there an alternative?
So I've been very clear. We have done everything possible to try to keep from getting to this point. We just have. We've tackled, inefficiencies in our system. We've limited contracts. We've negotiated contracts. We have brought things internal that were external. And at the end of the day, the cost to still, resource our campus is real. And we also know that we haven't been doing what we should have been doing historically, as far as making sure that every student gets what they need, no matter where they are in this city. And so there are no more options. Something has to change in order for us to take the next step as an organization. We've been here for 144 years. We're in the forever business. We need to be here for many, many generations to come, to ensure that the vibrancy of this city, of this community, continues on, because it relies on a healthy public education system. And we can't have that if we're insolvent.
You say something has to change. 13 campuses closing, that's a big change for a lot of people. Yeah. I want to go back to something you said when we first started talking, and you said the draft. So do you think that there is room for change within this?
Oh, absolutely. So whenever our process was very clear. When I introduced this process back in March of this year, I wanted to be very clear as to what our community could expect. We wanted to lean into data. We wanted to make sure that everybody understood when we got to a moment in time and recommendations were made, how we got there. It wasn't going to be a input in, black box output, right? It was really going to be thoughtful, and we have kind of been able to create a plan that layers multiple things together. There are other things in this plan that I think are worth sharing. You know, for the first time, as far as I can tell in the history of Austin ISD, you know, we're going to have aligned feeder patterns. You know, there are aligned feeder patterns in parts of Austin, and we can probably name where those schools are. But in many parts of Austin, specifically in the Eastern Crescent, we have elementary schools that get split up and go to 3 middle schools, and that middle school goes to 5 high schools. Like, how do you keep community together? How do you ensure aligned curriculum? How do you actually create a community within every part of our city when you have gerrymandered boundaries, which is what we have? You know, and so we also think about stability of district-wide programs. You know, whether it's wall-to-wall dual language or Montessori, we believe in these programs, but we also need to make sure that they're viable for decades to come, and you know, and that they're meeting the original intent of the program. And so when you think about what we're tackling, we're trying to do all of it together to ensure that we as a district can evolve to take on whatever's next and whatever's ahead of us. If we just take on, you know, efficiencies, or we just take on program alignment, or we just take on feeder pattern alignment, we would not be able to do this, and it would look very, very different. So yes, there is absolutely room for refinement, for input to come in to ultimately get to a change in the plan. It is a draft plan. We have 5 weeks of engagement. We have 4 community meetings, 3 are virtual, 1 will be in person. We have input cards so that everybody can share with us their thoughts on the plan. We're going to be working with our board over the next, you know, many weeks to get feedback, you know, in that dialogue from the dais. So absolutely, it is a draft plan, but I don't want our community to think that something can't happen. You know, we are at a moment that we have to evolve if we are going to protect this school district in this city and do it in a way that aligns with our values. Yeah, there is absolutely room for that space to occur, and I expect that it will refine in some way.
Do you think that, though, at the end of the day, it's 13? Is it a hard number of campuses that needs to close, or is that negotiable?
So over the course, I would hesitate to use the word negotiable.
Okay.
What I would say is, months ago, when we were working with our trustees, it was always about a number of seats in the school district, right? I never wanted to name a number of schools. I never wanted to, you know, talk about the dollar amount. Ultimately, if we could get to a target goal of near $30 million reduction, that would be a meaningful impact to help address our budget deficit. Now, we may not get there, but we needed to set some goals and some targets. And we also know that different schools have different number of seats and have different costs associated with them per pupil. You know, when you have administrative costs, you know, spread over 250 kids versus 500 kids, you know, that efficiency, you know, kind of, you can see it, right? And so for us, it was never about the number of schools. It was never about, you know, whether something's fixed or not. It was really going through the work, identifying the opportunities and the goals that we had as a system to address all at the same time. Also recognizing that there are state accountability, you know, turnaround plans that we have to develop in the same time. So all of this is woven together. So yes, I think that there's going to be refinement. No, there's not a hard and fast number, but I also do not want to be in a place where in a year and a half or 2 years we're having this conversation because we didn't take a bold enough we weren't willing to or able to make a hard decision now.
Yeah, you don't want to have to do it again.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we're here to support kids. I mean, we are here, like our core objective, the reason we exist is to educate, right? Not to have these conversations, you know, not to build, not to do, you know, not to transport. We do everything in service to education. And whenever you do something like this, the amount of pressure that it brings into a system, the amount of pressure it brings into our community, it's gargantuan. We acknowledge that. And I'm so sorry that we have to go through this now. I never wanted to be the superintendent to do this, but I want to be the superintendent who's willing to do what's hard to position AISD for the next 100 years. And that's where we are as a school district. And, you know, I feel confident that at the end of the day, you know, we will have a plan that ultimately gets supported.
Let's talk about the other compounding factor in all of this. So in addition to needing to have this multi-million-dollar reduction for the budget, we've got the turnaround plans and the improvement plans that have to be made because campuses received failing grades from the state. As we dive into that, I want you to first, I'm going to give you some time to talk about your thoughts on these failing grades, these failing campuses.
Well, the first thing I would say is we do not use, you know, accountability as so data point to determine, our students' success. Like, our students are so much more than a score. And I have been consistent about that. But we also have, clear areas of improvement. We understand that not all students are on grade level. We understand that there are some students in Austin ISD who are getting what they need and are successful academically, and there are many other students, those who have been historically underserved, who are not getting what they need, and the data shows that. I have been someone that's been really, really clear. Like, I genuinely believe that, when this is all said and done and my time here at Austin ISD is over, I want to make sure that the system has been moved and improved to support our most historically underserved student groups, but acknowledge the environment that we're in, because if we can support them, the entire system will improve. And so, we do have work ahead, but here's the thing, we're not flat-footed. We've been working on this since the moment I came on board. It was, when you think about what is required to have a vibrant, loving, school that is meeting the needs of our students, well, you got to have teachers, right? When I came on board, we had 66% of our teachers were being retained. Now we're at 88%. When I first came on board, we had 24 principals that were hired. Think about when you have that type of turnover, the challenge that creates in the school system, whether it's teachers being turned over or having new teachers come in who are all first-year teachers, and our students that are kind of experiencing that in the classroom. Like, we have stabilized that. This last year, we hired 6. A healthy system has about 3.5%, 4.5% attrition rate. We had huge variances between Title I and non-Title I attrition rates. We had 20% difference. Like, so why is it that some schools in some parts of town have these attrition rates and can't retain teachers, and in other parts of town we can? Like, you have to address that head on. And so if you're going to do it, you have to have the resources. You have to have a system that understands where each of your students are, right? We took on this endeavor of multi-tiered systems of support and really have focused our systems to ensure that we know where every student is and we're allocating the resources to get them on grade level. We didn't have that 3 years ago. Now we have it, right? Well, we also know that not every school has the same student population. So if we need to have instructional coaches working with our teachers, or we need content interventionists supporting our students that need additional support, we can allocate the resources. We didn't have either one of those one of those positions 3 years ago. We had them sporadically throughout the system, but they weren't focused and they weren't where our student needs were the greatest. And so the tax rate election in 2024 helped us move the system, actually be able to pay for content interventionists. We've invested in our teachers and staff and to retain them. We protected planning time in our schools. You can go to different school districts around the state of Texas, and you're not going to have the same amount of planning time that our teachers have here now. And so what I want our community to know is that we've been intentional, we've been hyper thoughtful, and we're starting at the beginning. It's not about third grade, it's about kindergarten, pre-K. It's early learning, and when you see the work that we've done, there is real evidence, like strong evidence, especially when it comes to early literacy or what we're seeing now with the movement accountability, that the system is responding. And so yes, when we came on board, I came on board in 2023, we were handed 30 F schools. 2024, the system is beginning to, improve. We had 29, and 25, you have 23. So it's a significant decrease. Next year, I expect to have way less. And when you think about the schools that have received this F in 2025, 11 of them were 59s, and they were 48s and then 52s and then now 59s. And so there is significant movement. And the one thing that we have to do is to stay focused, continue to invest where we need to have the supports, and recognize there's a large system with over 70,000 students that has to move, and we're doing that work. And this is one step that will allow us to continue to invest in those areas so that we can improve as a school district moving forward.
Do you understand, though, that when you say, so many of those schools were 59s, when you have parents or people who are starting families or people who are looking to purchase homes, when they look at this and see that there had to be turnaround plans for, 3 schools, 22, 23, based off of those results, then you've got 23 with another 9 that have to have those improvement plans, there are people who are going to say, well, I don't care if it was, I don't want my kids to go to a school with a D or C. I want my kids to go to a AB school. I'm not going to be in AISD because of this.
Well, and we acknowledge that. I mean, we want our objective, our focus is to have strong neighborhood schools. in every part of Austin, right? And we can define what includes a neighborhood, what strong is, but you have to have strong outcomes. The thing is it has to be done in alignment with our values in order for it to be sustained here in Austin ISD, right? So there are different things there are different approaches that anybody could take to actually move outcomes. What we're doing is saying we're here for the long game. We're going to start early. We're going to focus on early childhood. We're going to get our students on grade level who are not on grade level now with the systems that I just described. And we will over time, and we've seen this movement, because yes, it is urgent. There is no doubt that it is urgent. And like I said, we are moving the needle now. You know, when you go from 30 to 29 to 23, and you look at the trajectory that we're on, we will continue to see that in our outcomes. I want every single student, every family to look at their neighborhood school in their neighborhood and say, not only is it a loving, welcoming, multicultural school, but yes, from the state's perspective, it is also a high-performing school. And to do that, we have to have resources. To do that, we have to shift what we've been doing for the last 144 years, because the system has been created to produce the results that we have. These didn't happen overnight. You think back, these are 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years, even decades of decisions that were made. And so, yes, we're not there yet, and we will absolutely get there. But to do it, we need resources. We have to rethink who we are, how we operate, and that's what's included in this plan. This is part of that work.
But that complicated the work, right? So not only did you have to come to this decision of how are we going to close campuses, and to your credit, and figure out how we can do some feeders and we can really revamp the system. Yeah. But then we also have these schools that need these plans. But just because we can't just close that school and say, well, that goes away, right? Even if you close any of those schools, the grade sort of follows, right? Some of those students.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So then how did you really weigh? Talk to us about the process of all of this.
Yeah, so the process, so it's timeline driven, right? So when we created our process, we didn't know when 23, 24, well, we didn't know certainly when 24, 25 accountability would drop. And we certainly didn't know the timelines for the turnaround plans, but we definitely knew that we had work to do, and we had already been reconfiguring ourselves, focusing the work, and so we wanted the plan to stand on its own, right? We are not making decisions to, move a student group solely because of an accountability rating that they've received. That's not what this is. What we wanted to do is to create a comprehensive plan that met all the goals that we had talked about, all the different strategies that we presented to our trustees and that we heard, and then figure out, okay, how does that kind of fit into the turnaround plans that are being developed, with our school communities, and we know will ultimately be accepted by the agency. And so I will say that, we've been working with the agency by way of our TA agreed order, special education, which is another huge thing that we've been working through the last 2 years that a lot of folks have forgotten. But no, it is real, and it is still something that we're focused on and wanting to get through, and ultimately, we know that we'll be successful. And so through these conversations with the agency, we can really understand, also Region 13, based on what we want to do as a system, how can we support this school that has this turnaround plan. And so what you'll see in this overall deliverable that will be submitted, or I guess released later today, is a very thoughtful approach to how we're tackling each of these taps. In some cases, there will be a restart, right? But the restart may occur at a modernized facility, and we know that the number of resources deployed is not necessarily going to be the same type of restart that we saw earlier in the year. Or there may be a reassignment of students, but the reassignment will be thoughtful, and then the TAP will go to the school that is receiving the majority of the students. But also being aware that if we move one full campus to another, then you can also inadvertently create additional challenges that we otherwise didn't plan for. So we're very methodical in each of these approaches, but that's not what drove our work. What drove our work was what's best for AISD for the next 50 years. At the same time, worked and built out the TAPs, and then at the appropriate time, they kind of wove together. And I certainly recognize that the timing of these made for frustrating conversations in our community, but we didn't have the ability to share because we didn't have certainty. We just didn't know kind of what feedback would actually guide each decision. And so now we're at the point where they've come together, and both are represented in this effort.
So messages to parents, twofold. One, you have AB campuses that are going to be closing on this list. I want to make sure, I feel like I haven't said this, but it's 11 elementary schools, 2 middle schools. Some of those are AB campuses that would be closing. What do you say to those parents? And then what do you say to the parents who say, well, you're going to take kids from a failing school and put them in my non-failing school. Is this going to make my school a failing school and put my school at risk for a turnaround?
Yeah, so, because we're tackling multiple things at the same time, we wanted to acknowledge that there are going to be, closures and consolidations tied to program movement. There are closures and consolidations tied to balance of enrollment. And there are going to be schools that are higher performing that are going to be reassigned to other schools to address the overall efficiency and the cost challenges that we have as a system. But when you look at where we're making the changes for many of these schools, they're going to high performing, welcoming schools in their neighborhood. As the city has grown over the 144 years, we have schools that are, just a couple streets apart. And so for us, we really want to be intentional and say, this is a collective neighborhood. We understand there's going to be a disruption, but at the end of the day, the students are going to be welcomed and supported at the schools that are just right down the street. And in almost every case, have similar values, similar culturally. And so we think that over time, it will really be a larger community and a very healthy community together. When it comes to other types of changes about, you said, if a failing school goes into, a higher performing school and a parent says, will our school fail? I'm like, well, what I want to be really clear is the students aren't the problem. Just to be clear, the students are not the problem. The system is the problem. The outcomes that are being produced are a product of the system that has been built out for the 144 years. And so what I'm saying is we have to evolve. We have to own this, and we have to change how we're supporting our students in order to get where we need to get. And whenever we have a merger together, you're going to have students that have additional need in some cases, but we're going to provide those resources and supports. These are thoughtful plans. Our students that are in those schools have every right to have an excellent education and be supported in Austin ISD. And I am going to make sure that they get that support and those resources are allocated. So if any parent, wanted to say that would be kind of my response. And at the end of the day, when I talk to our principals are so excited. I've met with all of them, the ones that are going through a transition, and they are so incredibly excited to receive these students, to love them, to care for them, and also to ensure that there are high expectations in the classroom, that we're allocating the resources, and that we are doing what's required of Austin ISD to ensure that they're successful in their educational journey. I feel very, very confident that we're going to be able to support all of our students.
Final message for parents when they see this draft drop tonight. We have to, as an organization, evolve. We in this city love public education. We need to do this our way. We're at a moment where we still have the ability to inform the decisions, to inform the direction. But if we don't take ownership of the moment, it is very possible that someone will make the decisions for us. And our values, how we function in Austin ISD, is largely driven by our board, the administration, and we have a brave, I think, board and organization that is willing to do what's difficult now to ensure that we protect the whole organization for years to come. And I apologize for the disruption that this is going to cause in our community. I hope that our trusted families know that it's never something we desire to do, and to please engage with us through this journey. But the whole system, all 70,000 plus students, deserve to have excellent, high quality neighborhood schools. We have them in some places, but we don't have them everywhere. But you feel like you will after this?
I think this is a huge step in us getting there. When you look at it in its totality, the changes that we'll have, I don't know that we would have been able to do this if we weren't doing it all together. And so when you look back in 20 years, I would love to have an experience, for our students in East Austin that some schools in other parts of town have. When we just don't have that now.
Anything else you want to add?
Just that, no, it's hard. It's really, really hard, and the pressures are real. And I love this organization. I love this city. I love our kids. I love our staff. And we can do hard things, but only if we do them together. And we've demonstrated that over and over again, that we can do hard things. And there's lots of examples of them. I'm not going to get into them now. This is just the next hard thing to protect our students, to protect our city.